Number one, the job title is nurse. And this job saw a 14 times increase over the quarter prior.
So if you're a healthcare recruiter, this is what a lot of your competition's doing right now. Like if you have access to a healthcare data set or other ways to get in front of these people, you're going to win. This is what so many people are doing, or they're not using recruiters at all. So go through this list. These are niches.
Initiating becoming a hiring machine sequence in 3, 2, 1.
Hey everyone, it's Sam Keenley, and welcome back to Becoming a Hiring Machine. This is the show dedicated to fixing recruitment by going beyond saying what needs to change and instead teaches you how to make that change. Today, we have a great trending topics episode ahead of us, but before we get into that, I want to tell you a little bit about the show. Essentially, we have shows within the show here. Some days we have interviews with industry thought leaders and others who are shaking up the space, while other days like today, we cover trending topics. Stop by every Tuesday for a Tactical Tuesday episode where we go deep on how to do something that's going to help you drive better results in your day-to-day. And occasionally, you get a mic drop episode from Matt where he shares something that he's been thinking about within the recruitment space and wants you to know. Now, as a reminder, if you like the content that we share here on the show, make sure that you subscribe for more. All right, today, we've got a Trending Topics episode. And with us, as always, is your favorite Trending Topics co-host, Lex, to get us kicked off.
Hey, yes. Okay, so I'm going to start things off by just saying a statement that is going to surprise no one. You could even go so far as to say that this is the understatement of the year, maybe even the decade. AI is rapidly transforming the job market. Shocking comment, right? So that comment is not surprising at all, but some of the data backing up this comment might still be a little bit surprising, perhaps. LinkedIn data suggests that 70% of job skills will evolve significantly by 2030, largely due to AI. So for today's conversation, we've talked a lot about the theoretical, philosophical components of AI and how it will impact the workforce, the way that we work, et cetera. But today I kind of wanted to dive into two separate reports. Both of these come from LinkedIn. So they're using LinkedIn data to gather all of this. But the two reports are one, the 2025 skills on the rise list. This just came out a few days ago. It's really interesting. And we're going to compare that against their 2024 Q4 in demand jobs report that came out in late January of this year and was a retro on Q4 of 2024. So we will look at the two of these and compare them against each other to kind of see how this evolution is actually impacting the types of skills and the types of roles that we're likely going to see more of in 2025 and beyond. I say beyond with the caveat that, things are changing very quickly. So maybe this is just a 2025 thing. Maybe 2026 will look so wildly different that we're going to be having a completely different conversation. But this data in and of itself is very interesting. And I think that there's going to be some surprises and then also some, yeah, I could have seen that coming type things.
Perfect. And that's why this is a trending topic.
Exactly. It's very trendy. Trends come and go. They come back sometimes. I've seen lately that Crocs are like in again. And
Did they
they
leave?
even they left, but now they've come back like in full force. And
Yeah.
I'm noticing I'm not like a Crocs person, but I'm noticing Crocs that I'm like, wait a second, I might need to get those. These
Yeah,
Crocs
I'm with you.
wedges or whatever they are.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I've had the same thought. I remember 10 years ago when they came out, I'm just like, those are the stupidest things I've ever seen. And about a month ago, I was thinking to myself, I'm like, should I get a pair of Crocs? Like,
They're good house shoes. They're good just
house
like
shoes. People are
doing the
wearing them. They're
dishes.
comfortable.
Yeah.
I mean, they look like they're made out of straight rubber and plastic, so I don't know how good they are for the environment or anything else. But hey,
True.
if they're comfy,
What
who
are we
knows?
going to do?
Maybe in a couple
Nurses
episodes we'll
love
both be.
them, and that's actually kind of a good segue into some conversation that we're going to be having later on. Maybe the rise of nurses is responsible in part for the rise of Crocs. I don't know. I'll dig into that at a later date.
Best segue ever in the show. Done.
Best
Check.
segue.
All right. It's a wrap, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. This was a good
We're
episode.
calling it a day.
All right, let's get into it.
Okay, so first I want us to just dive into the fastest growing skills, and we're going to look at them by country. We're not going to look at all of the countries that were listed in this report, but I do want us to take a look at a couple. I think I have 4 listed out here. The reason that I want to do that is we'll notice some similarities. There are several recurring themes in these emerging skills, but there are also some in-demand skills that vary quite wildly from country to country. So we'll blast through those real quickly. You'll notice those common themes and then we'll kind of chat through them. So, in the US, the top 5 skills on the rise right now are AI literacy, conflict mitigation, adaptability, process optimization, and innovative thinking. In the UK, relationship building, strategic thinking, AI literacy, communication, and large language model utilization, LLMs. Australia, AI literacy, communication, strategic thinking, LLM proficiency, and adaptability. And then finally in Brazil, AI literacy, communication, strategic thinking, customer retention, and a wild card, trade policy.
Okay.
There's an anomaly for you.
This is interesting. And I know
So
you're going to have some
obviously,
points. Go ahead.
yeah, elephant in the room. AI literacy came up on
Mm-hmm.
every single one of these lists at various points in the ranking system. And then we also have LLM utilization and proficiency. Obviously, these are AI functions.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we can make the point that AI literacy and AI utilization in general are skills that are on the rise across geographies. You know, more and more professionals are adding this to their profile of skills, and their companies are increasingly hiring for these skills. So this isn't inherently surprising, but it is a bit surprising in the sense of most of these skills didn't exist 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, brand new. I'm looking for 5 years of experience with AI literacy. Yeah, it's like, aren't we all?
Yeah.
Okay.
How can I have the skills if this thing didn't exist 5 years ago? I don't know.
Yeah. We can come back to AI in a little bit because everyone's hearing AI, AI, AI. I want to zoom out because there's a couple things that actually are interesting to me here. We're both in the United States. So, of course, naturally, I'm able to put myself in the shoes of a company within the US. Conflict mitigation being the second one is kind of funny to me. I don't know. Like, that's definitely more at the macro level, I feel like, just across the country. So I'm not surprised to see this on the list. I wonder what the context was in the survey, how they grouped this, but seeing it as the second one doesn't surprise me. The one thing that jumps out to me, so I'm going to skip US here for a second. United Kingdom, number 2 is strategic thinking. Australia, number 3, strategic thinking. Brazil, number 3, strategic thinking. United States does not have that, but they have innovative thinking. And that to me, actually, I think that's something that's more rooted in US companies and tech and everything else. When it like, go look at all the companies who are creating new categories and really doing like disruptive things versus strategic is it's usually more timeless things, what already exists and how do you make the most of that. So that was just an interesting difference in the slight difference in the wording, but two very different approaches to what they get you to.
You're making me curious too, because one of the countries that was further down on the list that I didn't include in these high level notes was India, which I feel like a lot of innovation comes out of there as well. So I'm pulling it up real quick to see if they have number 1, innovative thinking, creativity, and innovation.
There you go.
They also do have strategic thinking on their list as well. It's innovative thinking, code review, problem solving, pre-screening, and strategic thinking. So I definitely think there's something to that theory. There's a cultural value system that almost informs the way that obviously companies operate, but then the way that they hire, the skills that they're looking for. So yeah, that's a very good observation.
But yeah, and even as just to bring it back to like recruiters, when you think about the candidates you're presenting or pitching to those different places regionally, like knowing that small nuance between the two, if you're pitching, your MPC to an organization based in the UK and the US, that could be something to latch onto that's important that we might not really have thought that deeply about before.
100%. No, I think that's a great point. I think ultimately, one of the things that was a big standout in all of these lists for me was the fact that soft skills are universal. So, yes, there are some nuances to the type of soft skills that you're looking for, but across countries and roles, the fact that soft skills are a growing skill set is consistent. And most of the skills on this list, with a few outliers being trade policy and then those AI specific skills, were soft skills. And I think that that's a really important point now in this age of AI that we're talking about. It's so ironic that, yeah, AI proficiency is on the rise, but also this desperate need for these very human, very just relationship driven soft skills as well. It's really interesting to see that dichotomy starting to play itself out. And I do think that this is something where you're never going to go wrong by investing in developing soft skills.
Hmm.
You can make poor strategic decisions in terms of other hard skills that you might invest your time in. You want to start thinking through, okay, is this job going to exist in 10, 15 years? But when it comes to soft skills, you literally can't waste your time by developing them. And so I think that that's a really important thing, that it's easy to sleep on soft skills. It's easy to think of those as secondary, but I think that they're going to become so much more important in the next 5 to 10 years. And if you can start taking a class of some sort or just learning more about these things, take an improv class. I always recommend people take an improv class. Do things that stretch you from a soft skills perspective, and you will start to see that have a massive impact on your professional life. I think that that is just like such a cool sticking point from these lists.
Yeah, I mean, communication's never going to go away. We look at especially like AI, data, all those. It's very easy to get to an output, but there's always that connecting. I call it the so what piece. You have to be able to communicate that to leadership, to your customer, to your client, to whoever it may be. It's really hard to not like you. That's the human element to do that well, to connect those dots. It's yeah, AI could potentially do it. Find some AI agent. I don't know, figure it out, but that's where the human element. I don't think that can be replaced.
No, and I think that there is just an element of the evergreen nature of soft skills. Qualifications, jobs, roles themselves are shifting so drastically very quickly. It's hard to kind of keep a grip on that, but there is this evergreen component to soft skills in the sense of no matter how these roles evolve, there is always going to be a need for, yes, conflict management and resolution, for communication, for strategic thinking and innovative thinking. So, the more that you can do to bolster those skills, the more you'll be able to ride the waves of all of these shifting roles and qualifications that are kind of outside of the soft skill realm.
Yeah, that's so true.
So, speaking to kind of this concept of emerging roles, you know, that I think emerging is the key word there, in the sense of, like I said, a lot of these job titles that didn't exist 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. We're going to get more into job titles in a little bit, and we'll see this in terms of just some of the dramatic growth that certain job titles have experienced. So it's wild, but I also think that it is a call to action. It's not like these jobs have been around for a long time and there are these designated experts in certain fields or people who got their PhD in AI literacy. This is something where there is a lot of opportunity, and you're not going to be replaced by someone who's been developing these skills for forever. You're much more likely to be replaced by someone who, right at this very moment, is developing those skills,
Hmm.
which means that person could be you. You could listen to this podcast episode and then go and say, hey, I'm going to sign up for a class, on LLMs and LLM proficiency. I'm going to develop that skill set. I'm going to do some, use deep research to teach me how to do these things. There's so much opportunity out there, and the people who really invest that time in upskilling themselves are going to be more resilient. They're going to be more adaptable, and they're going to be ready for whatever comes next. So I think taking the time to learn and master at least one new skill as often as you can is a good lesson. If you're willing to go back to school, so to speak, you're going to be successful. But you have to be willing to do that. And I think that that's a big hurdle for a lot of people, is just that
Hmm.
level of willingness.
Yeah, it's a growth mindset. It's being uncomfortable with that. I mean, it's so easy to say, like, I know the strategy, I know the tactics, I know how to do it. I can kind of check in, check out, go through the motions. It's always worked, but like we've talked about in countless episodes before, what always has worked. Like AI wasn't around 3 years ago. That's completely changed the game with every level of recruitment. So yeah, I'm not going to beat a dead horse. Go listen to, I can't even list the episode numbers here. Find at most any episode you and I have discussed. We talk about it. So yeah, fully with you. Growth mindset. If you have that in recruitment, you are going to be successful.
Totally. And I think with AI, there's a new level of stubbornness that a lot of people feel about, like, I shouldn't have to change. I shouldn't have to learn these things. I don't want to do this. And I can understand that. But at the same time, it's like, that doesn't change reality. Reality is what reality is. And these data points aren't lying to us. There's some room for different interpretations. But I think that we need to take what's happening at face value in a
Mm-hmm.
sense and say, all right, I need to adapt. I need to evolve. I might not like it, but it's happening and I have to. So, a tough pill to swallow. Sorry to say it, but it is just one thing to be aware of. So, um, one more thing I want to say within this is these skills are going to align with some of the emerging jobs in each country that we're going to look at. But for the purpose of just keeping this conversation a little bit more concise, we're only looking at in demand jobs across the US. I looked at a couple of the other countries, and there are similarities in terms of the roles represented. And I'll drop the full report in the show notes. But I just wanted to give that disclaimer that we're going to just only be talking about in demand jobs in the US specifically. Okay, so with that in mind, let's get into that piece of the puzzle, which this is now referencing LinkedIn's in demand jobs report from Q4 of 2024. So, again, this report came out at the end of January of this year, and it was looking back at, okay, in Q4 of 2024, what roles saw the biggest increase in demand from the quarter prior, Q3 of 2024? And the way that we're measuring that is an increase in paid job posts on LinkedIn specifically. So that's kind of the frame of reference that we're
Mm-hmm.
using. I'll go through a list of 10 job titles, and then I'll add a couple of pieces of context that I think are important as we're sifting through this data and talking about it.
Okay.
So, number one, the job title is nurse. And this job saw a 14 times increase over the year prior, or the quarter prior. My apologies. Number two, information technology consultant, 9x. Number three, mechanical technician, 8x. Number four, finance officer, 6x. Number five, accounting associate, 6x. Number six, information technology analyst, 5x. Number seven, software engineer, also 5x. Supply chain analyst, also 5x. Number nine, financial services associate, also, oh no, this one's 4x. And then number 10, lawyer, 4x. So those are the top 10 most in demand jobs according to LinkedIn job posts that have some spend behind them. One thing I want to keep in mind, one, these numbers don't necessarily represent the number of jobs that are actually available. We've talked about ghost jobs. We've talked about various points in time where people might have more job postings out there than they're actually hiring for various reasons. So that's one caveat. 14x more nursing jobs being posted doesn't necessarily mean that there are 14x more nursing jobs that are actually open.
Mm-hmm.
It just means that they're advertising these positions on LinkedIn. The second caveat that I'll put here is you and Vivian in a recent Tactical Tuesday episode chatted about naming conventions, the different ways that various people might title a role. Within the category of nurses, you've got nurse, you've got registered nurse, you've got pediatric nurse. There's a lot of different ways that you could refer to a role. So that's another piece of the puzzle here where they're just looking at the straight up title nurse. When you combine that with nurse plus registered nurse, it does bring that number down a bit. It's still an increase, but it's more like a 3x increase rather than a 14x increase. So again, that's another piece of the puzzle. And then the final caveat that I want to put here is these numbers are simply comparing growth quarter over quarter. It's not accounting for the fact that some of these roles may actually be down from the same quarter a year ago. It doesn't account for the fact that there are some net new jobs that are on the rise that aren't represented here because they weren't even a factor in the last quarter. So just a couple of points that I want to say. Every time we bring data to the table, there's
Mm-hmm.
room for there to be different interpretations. And I don't want people to take this and think I'm saying there's 14 times more
Yeah.
nursing jobs than there were before. Go invest all of your money in recruiting nurses. That's not what I want to say. But
I'm
I
going to
do
clip
think that
that
this is
right
very
there.
interesting.
That's a social clip for us, minus you saying, I'm not going to say that. That's our
Oh.
headline. That's how I'm going to get people to watch this episode, Lex. Thank you.
14 times more. Spend all of your time and money
Yes.
on nurses.
Yeah. No, I'm so glad you said all that because in marketing, I always say this, data without context is meaningless. Like you have to have that context with it. You can get a number for anything. that could tell a great story or a terrible story with the same exact data point. So thank you for laying that out there. Yeah, there's some really interesting things in here that I'm immediately pulling out. I'm curious to what you got out of it. But yeah, first one being nurses, 14x increase quarter over quarter. So one, with all the rules, I have a feeling if these were posted in Q4, like for a lot of companies, new fiscal year starts January. So I bet there's some front loading there to try to get some candidate pools in place. But two, I don't want to call it desperation. So it's not desperation, but these organizations are clearly struggling to fill these roles. What's really interesting to me about the nurse one is we know that about 70% of healthcare practitioners don't have LinkedIn profiles, let alone spend time on there. So if you're a healthcare recruiter, this is what a lot of your competition's doing right now. Like if you have access to a healthcare data set or other ways to get in front of these people, like you're going to win. You're just flat out, like this is what so many people are doing, or they're not using recruiters at all. So go through this list. It's April now, so some things may change, but like these are niches. These are specialties where do some research, find out if these trends are remaining the same or not. But this gives you a really strong insight into these are organizations that are post and praying. Like they are willing to pay to promote the ad. So they're willing to not just like put it on a free job board or something else, but like, okay, this is a pain enough, we have to pay for it. Next step, we can't find the right people. We need to pay someone to go and find them for us. So if I was a recruiter, I'm just saying this would probably be my starting point.
Definitely. And to your point, they're paying money to advertise a job in the case of nurses that it's not even the right platform for them to be doing it. This is all just based off of job posts in LinkedIn. And like you said, 3 out of 10, nursing professionals are on LinkedIn. So that is a great opportunity for you as a recruiter to build your business case around, hey, you're spending all of this money in a way that is completely inefficient. Let me build a long list for you that instantly wipes away all of the troubles that you have essentially. And so I think, there's a lot of opportunity from just a positioning standpoint for you to position yourself against this, especially in those niche industries. Another one that we have here is mechanical technician. These blue collar jobs, these, more manufacturing jobs, construction, et cetera. A lot of these are not LinkedIn jobs that, people are online looking for, their next role. So these are opportunities for you to kind of go around the system and find a new way. And I think that that's a great value prop.
Yeah. So I don't know, food for thought. Hopefully this gives people some ideas for where to go after listening.
Definitely. So those were the jobs with the fastest growing demand quarter over quarter for the US only. Now I want us to take a look at the most in demand jobs overall from Q4 of 2024. And this is global. So this is now zooming out a bit. And we're looking at, again, roles with the greatest number of paid LinkedIn job posts. So again, all of those data caveats still apply here, but there's some really interesting stuff on this list that I'm curious for your thoughts on. I was pretty surprised by a few of these. And what we're seeing is I'm going to give a role, and then I'm going to give a number that represents the jump in the list that this had over, again, the last quarter. So you're going to see some crazy big numbers that will blow your mind in terms of the fact that just a quarter ago, this role was basically a non-factor. So here we go. The number one job on the most in demand jobs list was software engineer. And this was up 1 from last quarter. It was in the number 2 spot. It surpassed salesperson, which was previously the number 1 role, and had been the number 1 role for 5 quarters in a row. So sorry, salesperson, you have been demoted to the number 2 spot. Software engineers have jumped. And one thing that I'll call out is on the previous list of fastest growing demand roles, software engineers were number 7. So just a little bit of a consistency there from the US and like the global scale. Number 2 was salesperson, like I said. Number 3 on
Really
this
quick,
list. Yes.
I'm really glad that software engineer and salesperson are 1 and 2. LinkedIn is great at finding those people. A lot of those people spend their time on there. This makes complete sense. This is perfect. You're in the right place for the right roles. These are what you should see as 1 and 2.
Well, before you get ahead of yourself, Sam, number 3 is nurse.
And we're back.
So number 1 and 2 make total sense. We're in a great position there. But number 3, we're at nurse, which was a 78-point jump over the last quarter. And now this is the thing that surprises me so much is, like you said, nurses typically not on LinkedIn. They weren't 3 quarters ago, they aren't now. So why this jump? It's not necessarily just because we need more nurses. Why are more of these roles being posted on
Mm-hmm.
LinkedIn? This is something that I'm really curious about. And like, what is driving these, hiring teams to say we've got to get this job on LinkedIn? So one big question for me there, I mean, that is a huge jump. It's the biggest jump on the list, 78 points in 1 quarter. That's crazy. We've been talking about the nursing shortage for a really long time. This isn't a new issue. So why this jump now? I'm really intrigued by that. I want to do more digging on that data point specifically because it's just not
Mm-hmm.
making sense to me.
Stay tuned. At
Stay
11,
tuned.
the nursing shortage.
So number 4, project manager. This was in the number 5 spot last quarter and then jumped 1. So that makes a little more sense. Number 5, account manager. That one's up 14 points. Number 6, customer service rep. That one is in the same position that it was the previous quarter. Number 7, electrical engineer. This one also had a huge jump of 47 points. So it wasn't even in the top 10 in the quarter prior. It was well outside of the top 10. Number 8, sales manager. This was a 15-point jump. Number 9, accountant, a 39-point jump, also fairly significant. And then number 10, administrative assistant, also up 24, which I thought was really interesting, especially given the conversation that we've been having about AI agents and AI assistants. A lot of people have, the cultural conversation has been admin assistants are being replaced by AI, yet we're seeing
Mm-hmm.
more demand for administrative assistants than we did a quarter ago. And so I found that really fascinating as well. Um, so yeah, multiple jobs on this list were not in the top 10 in the quarter prior, and they were far outside of it and are now in the top 10 most in demand jobs overall across the entire world. Really, really interesting.
It is. Part of me wants to look at this like year over year as well. Like, did we see similar trends in Q4 of 2023? Because I could see accountant like getting ahead of tax season. We're hiring. Like,
True.
there's certain ones that do line up for that, but the other ones, it's like, is this more of an industry thing, a sector thing, a macroeconomic thing? So, yeah, I don't know. Just data geek side of me wants to get into
I know.
analysis mode.
No, it's crazy. And it again, it's so easy to look at this and say, I'm going to change my entire strategy based off of these data points. No, we're not recommending that you do that. This is a trending topics episode. We're just giving you a level of awareness over some of these macro trends that we're seeing. But I think it's important to, again, do a little bit further digging. Are there things that make sense? We just did a series on contract recruitment. We talked a lot about accounting, financial services, even customer service, having these kinds of ebbs and flows throughout a calendar year. So, again, there are different reasons why some of these data points might be on the rise. I do think it's an interesting case for a contract recruitment model, given the fact that we are starting to see a bit more seasonality to certain jobs,
Mm-hmm.
even ones that previously didn't have that level of seasonality to them. And so it's kind of fascinating to think about, a contract recruitment cycle where you're working not with just one specific type of role, but rather a couple different ones to build out your calendar year yourself and make sure that you have coverage for each of those seasons and ebbs and flows. So if you haven't listened to that series on contract recruitment, I highly recommend it. Regan on our team is an expert on all things contractors and just building out a really strong book. And so I highly recommend that series. But yeah, very interesting stuff here. I think, one of the big takeaways for me is AI is definitely shaking things up, but there's some evidence of the fact that it's maybe not as extreme or severe as some of the loud voices might make it seem. That doesn't mean that we don't need to prepare for that to be true, but I think that it just kind of gives a little bit more of an awareness of, okay, change is fast, but it's also slow. And there's some time here to learn these new skills, to develop these new skills, and to just kind of stay abreast of all of these other changes that are happening at a slower pace, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a binary. Oh, if you don't know this, you're like, it's yes or no. You have to know. You don't. It's like there are there's gray in between. Just being familiar
Totally.
with it, understanding how it works. You have team members that can help with it, or where agents can fit in your workflow again. Like, yeah, it's not a like all or nothing type scenario.
100%. Yeah. And I think that ultimately, the biggest thing that I hear or that I feel when I look at this data is just, again, upskilling as much as you possibly can as just you, an individual, you listening to this, invest in upskilling, but then also investing in your team's upskilling. This is a great competitive advantage for, an agency bringing in other, new recruiters. Are you going to help them develop this skill set? And this is also something that you need to be encouraging your clients to be doing with their teams as well. We've talked a lot about the fact that retention is harder than it has been in the past, and it's also more important than it has been in the past. When we're talking about emerging skills, these aren't skills that you can expect your team to just already have or to have them just like innately. And within a 9 to 5, outside of that, it's difficult sometimes for people to have the time to invest in learning these new skills
Mm-hmm.
themselves. A lot of people have full lives outside of work. And while there might be interest in developing new skills, they might not have time. And so, building time within the working hours to help these employees develop these new skills that will set them up for success, but will also have a ripple effect on your entire organization, that is a win win. And so, I do think that this is something that we've talked about before, but I would give a little bit more urgency and a little bit more importance to it, because I do think that this is going to be a critical differentiator moving forward. And if you can get ahead of this and be in the first wave of people who are really investing time in upskilling both AI literacy and soft skills, you are going to be ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm. Amen.
Amen.
Hallelujah. Can't end in a better spot than that. Well, I know it's been a minute since we've done this trending topics, but this was a good one to get back started with. So, as always, appreciate you coming with the good, meaty topics for us to get into with this.
Yeah, happy to be here. Happy to do it.
All right. Well, as we wrap, y'all know the final spiel. Becoming a Hiring Machine is a production of Loxo. If you like this episode, but you're not sure where to go next, we do have a link to a similar one. You can find that in the description of your favorite podcasting platform, as well as on our website. Full video episodes are available on YouTube. If you ever have questions, send them our way, podcast@loxo.co. And lastly, if you did enjoy this episode, please make sure you leave us a quick rating in your podcasting platform. It takes you 3 seconds, but it's going to help other recruiters like you to find us. So, all right, everyone, that's the show. That was a great trending topics episode with Lex. Until next time, bye, y'all.